Hi, this is the Live Better, Explore More podcast. I'm Alan Mayseal, and I'm here with local estate planning attorney Bridget MacKay. Bridget's going to talk all things estate planning, plus one more thing. Welcome to the Live Better, Explore More podcast with your host, Alan Mayseal. If you like what you hear, please hit like and subscribe. Welcome, Bridget.
Thank you, Alan. Happy to be here.
Good. Hey, listen, let's start. First, tell me about your business. How long have you been doing it?
Okay.
How'd you get there?
How did I get there? So my business is focused on estate planning and elder law, trust admin, probate, which are kind of the areas of law that most estate planners practice in. I've been doing it, I started in 2005, but really only made like $6,000 that year doing it because I started it from the ground up. So I like to kind of place it 2006, 2005. So what is that? Almost 20 years.
Yeah.
And I have been practicing law generally, though, for almost 30 years. In 2025, it'll be 30 years since I graduated from law school. And I was a deputy district attorney for 10 years prior to my practice starting.
Oh, I can see the pathway. Start as a DA, go into estate planning. It's right. A natural progression.
Clear, yeah.
So how in the world do you go from the deputy DA, right, where we the people are putting people away,
yep, I
right,
was, yep,
to we the people, you're helping we the people?
Yeah. It was really life circumstances. So in law school, I dabbled in criminal law. That's what I was sort of attracted to. I started with the public defender's office. I thought I was going to be a public defender or some kind of civil rights litigator. I love trial. That's what I knew and what I discovered in law school. So I did a summer at the public defender's office in Santa Clara County. And, everybody deserves a defense, but I just did not have what it took to be in that role. some stories. So then I kind of looked around. I did an extern in the Court of Appeals in San Francisco, and there was a judge there who I knew from my home county. I grew up in Solano County. And he said, you should really look into the DA's office. And at that point, after being in the public defender's office, I thought, well, those people are evil, they violate rights and. But I gave it a try, and I did a internship in the Santa Clara District Attorney's Office and loved it. They almost immediately gave you, once you had your class in evidence, you could put on motions and things like that. And that DA's office really fostered their interns and put them in court. So, it was like a drug. I was hooked.
How long did you do that?
As it worked as a DA?
Yeah.
10 years. I started in Vallejo in 1996. For the Solano County DA's office, they have sort of an outpost there, even though the county seat's in Fairfield. I was there for 3.5 years. That's where I actually tried most of my cases. We were trying cases as a misdemeanor deputy, sometimes 2 a week. And then I was kind of attracted to domestic violence cases. And that really defined my career as a DA. At that time, there was not a lot of prosecution of domestic violence. Mid-'90s, late 90s, women were being murdered. There was one in Vallejo while I worked there. And so a lot of federal money and, training, educating police officers, things like that was going on. Changes in the evidence code. It was very dynamic in that area of criminal law. And then I went over to Sonoma. I was there for about 7 years and eventually ended up on the homicide team before I left. And I left because I had a baby. And my husband at the time was a Vallejo police officer, and he was working swing shifts. And I had a call. I was on pager duty for Sonoma, and I got a call to go up to the sheriff's office and approve some arrest and search warrants at 3:00 in the morning. And so he was not back from work. My baby was like 7 months old. Had to wake her up, get her in the car, because I lived in Petaluma then too. Drive to the sheriff's office. And she was now up and not happy about it. And these detectives were passing her around to kind of calm her while I was trying to look at the computer. These days, they probably could have emailed it to me and I could have done it at home. But that was not the case then. So that really made me think I need to do something else that's not this.
Okay, so that I see why the change.
Yeah.
But where did you find, I mean, you talked about you like trial,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And so you get the public defender, you get
Right.
the DA.
Right.
And I get why you want to change. You got the baby.
Right.
But how do you get to estate planning?
Yeah, I know. I know. I think we all in life get places because we don't like necessarily, we know what we don't like. And changing, I knew was giving up. I soon learned was giving up trial, because if I went to the public defender's office, same schedule. There at 8:30, trial work, all of that. If I went as a private defense counsel, same schedule, same issues. So then I had to start looking around at other areas of law. Family law? No. Just no, I don't want to do it. Civil law, I hated it in law school. I mean, poke my eyes out with a pen. And landed on estate planning just from personal experience. I was kind of familiar with what trusts were. And in law school, I kind of liked that class. So I thought, I'm going to do that. It was very Thelma and Louise. I'm going to do that. And I drove the car off the cliff, quit my DA job, and started up this practice on my dining room table.
So one of the questions I have is, given your background, how do you navigate the complexities of estate planning to ensure the best outcomes for your clients? And I think is the answer, drive the car off the cliff.
Yeah. Just go, throw your hat over the fence, because you're going to have to go over the fence to get it. I looked for mentors. I knew I needed a mentor or two. I had a lot of coffees with current estate planning attorneys who asked me the same question. I think that's the only reason they had coffee with me, because I'd be like, hey, I'm new at this. Would you be willing to have a lunch or be a mentor? And I think they really met me just for the story. Like, what are you doing?
Yeah, it doesn't really, there's,
No.
that's,
No.
you can't, they don't tie together.
No, they don't.
Other than to
They
say
don't.
they both have you practicing law.
Right. You're practicing law. I think you have skills as a district attorney or a trial lawyer that can talk to people and really get the information you need out of them, and not afraid to ask questions. I've seen everything. I've heard everything. And so the estate planning client who comes in and is a little timid about their addicted child, or, this kind of family secret that normally they might keep hidden, I was really able to kind of put them at ease and tease it out of them, because I had, 10 years of talking to domestic violence victims, their families, cross-examining defendants, nothing really fazed me. So that was one skill that was helpful.
Is there any case, and not looking for names, but any case or cases where you thought, I won't say interesting, but had maybe some certain challenges to it, or that everybody says, hey, what was one of your best moments as a DA? What was one of your best moments as a public defender?
Right.
Can you, without obviously naming names, but can you talk about the generalities of cases in either one of those previous lives you had?
Yeah. I mean, it's been 20 years, so, there's a lot of funny stories. But I think one of the coolest moments in court was a homicide I did, one of my last. And it was a weird love triangle where a man and two women, and the man was dating one woman, then started dating another woman, and ended up execution style killing the first woman. And those two women were best friends. It was a crazy case. But when the shooting occurred, the new girlfriend and best friend was in the car too. They were all three in the car, and he drove to a remote location in Sonoma County and got the woman out of the car. And I don't know what conversations went on, but I had the surviving girlfriend on the stand and asked her about that night. Like, okay, they both got out of the car. Then what happened? I don't know. The music was up too high. Okay. Well, when did they get back in the car? Well, only he got back in the car. Did you hear the gunshot? Yeah, I heard the gunshot. She was currently dating him too. It was very tension filled, but she was talking. So I kept asking, and this was in the jury trial. And I said, well, what did he say when he got in the car? And she said, dude dropped hard. And it's one of those moments where you're cross-examining someone or direct examining, asking questions, and it is just the most golden nugget of phrase. Because that phrase, and I just was quiet. And I looked at the jury, like, did you all hear that? Wow.
Dude dropped hard.
Yeah. Who says that after they murder someone? Apparently this guy.
Yeah.
I was in the paper, my closing argument was peppered with it. Yeah, you don't step over one of those. So, but in the end, that was a sad case. He was, they were young. He was 24. The woman he killed was young, had a daughter. He had a 2-year-old toddler. Just, you really see the humanity of all of it in that job.
Wow. Okay, that gets you closer to a state planner, because when you're dealing with people towards the end of life, right, there are some hard decisions that have to get made.
Right.
So under estate planning, what, like probate and trust, right?
Yeah.
Like trustees.
Yeah, so creating trust
elder
with
care.
clients. Yeah, sort of that journey of, I don't know, 40s, 50s to death, right? What shows up for a family? What are challenging things? And you start with planning for them. These are, I know, over 20 years, these are things that could come up in your life. So let's put a plan together.
What kind of reaction do you get when you tell people the hard truth about, hey, listen, in 20 years, you could be looking at this, right? I mean, nobody really wants to think,
No.
I'm going to get dementia, I'm going to get Alzheimer's, or I'm going to get some debilitating illness. Right?
Yeah, yeah.
But that's the reality.
It is.
Not everybody has that or goes through it.
No.
But enough people go through something like that
Right.
that we're really not prepared. We think we are, but the reality is we're not.
Well, it's the beauty of human existence. We are hopeful creatures, We don't want to look at, the cold, hard truth.
It can be painful.
Yeah, well, scary.
How do you stay up to date on, Medi-Cal, for example, right?
Right.
I mean, that changes,
Right,
right? How do you stay up on it's not just one thing you're staying up on.
right.
You have to stay up to date on several.
Yeah.
How do you find the time to do that?
I think what's important in our practice is that we're really clear of the services we provide, right? So within the umbrella of estate planning, you could be a, high net worth estate planner where you're doing sort of estate tax work and trying to set up so people aren't exposed to those estate tax and death taxes. You can have someone who specializes in, say, conservatorship. So someone who hasn't done any planning becomes incapacitated and has to interface with court. So over time, I've kind of whittled down my sweet spot. So that helps because then it reduces the amount of subjects I need to be on top of. And so for us, I don't do high net worth estate planning, or if you have a vineyard, or, all of those kind of multi-million dollar families. And I refer those. I know enough tax issues for my clientele that I do have and consult. So we belong to something called the American Academy of Estate Planning Attorneys. It's a nationwide organization of firms like ours, just doing estate planning, elder law. And they offer continuing legal education twice a year. So Miranda and I go to those. We bring our team, our paralegals as well, because they also need to know some things. And then from the Medi-Cal standpoint, in elder law, CANNER is an organization in California, California Association of Nursing Home Reform. And they put on a training once a year in Monterey that I've gone to for years, where there's just a ton of regulatory updates, best practices in that area. And then I'm on a lot of listservs. So
what aspects of your legal career do you find most fulfilling in your current practice compared to your time in the DA or the public defender?
I loved trial work. I love that work in the DA's office. They're good people on both sides of the bar there. It was very thrilling. It was very think on your feet. It was very performative, really sexy at parties to talk about. But it was hard work. It was really hard. I still have a lot of friends there who are now kind of like judges and everything else. And compared to what I do now, I think the through line for it is just connecting with people. I'm a people person, and I like problem solving. And so what really is, in the DA's office, that was problem solving. Like, you had a set of criminal circumstances that you needed to fit into an actual violation, and you needed evidence and proof and strategy. And estate planning, similar. I get to know all the my client, like, deeply, like, what is going on with you? What do you need? And then from there, it's just kind of supporting them in their strategy to get through, frankly, really difficult times. Some of the hardest subjects and times in our life that we face,
Yeah. It's not, that stage can be not a lot of fun.
Yeah. With some hard truths.
So do you ever find yourself having to go to court as an estate planner?
I try not to.
But I mean, but are there times where you just flat out have to go to?
No, and that's the other thing I do. For a while, at the beginning of my practice, I was doing trust litigation, because I had those skills. Those were the most readily available to me.
Right.
Now, 20 years on, I really don't want to do any trust litigation. It's ugly. It's messy. It's a beneficiary who's upset that they're not getting something, or mom changed her mind, or undue influence, or I don't want to do any of that. I refer it out. So no, I'm not in court. But probate is by nature a court process. So we file things in court, but rarely do I set foot in a courtroom anymore.
Okay. There's a balance, like, between compassion, right, and the legal intricacies of estate planning.
Yeah.
I mean, how do you do that? I mean, sometimes when you have to tell somebody
Yeah.
the hard truth,
Yeah.
right, it kind of sounds like maybe, not that you lack compassion, but
No.
people hearing it might think, wow, you don't really care about me. You're just, boom, giving it this hard line. I mean, how do you balance that when you're talking to your clients?
Yeah. I mean, like anything, even real estate, you build a rapport. So every client, if you're working with a client, you've done their estate plan, or you're in the midst of doing their estate plan, you get all the facts and then you have tough conversations. They'll tell you something about a child like, my oldest is, 3 years out of in recovery. She's doing really well and she's got a job and she's got this and she's got that. And, I would like her to be the trustee. And I'm like, yeah, totally see it. That's great. And 3 years of recovery might not be, there's triggers in being a trustee that, former addiction could set off. Is that really what you want to do for her? Just those conversations like, yeah, I get it. They want these decisions of like, I want both my kids as co-trustees because one can balance the other, because of these different dynamics. And I'm like, yeah, that's a recipe for disaster, right? If they're balancing, that means they don't get along on the other side. I've seen it.
Right.
And they're kind of shocked. Like, really? We just have to pick one? And then that challenge of picking one.
Yeah.
How do we do that?
Yeah. Trustees. Let's get into that. I spent some time as a trustee.
Yeah.
And, I thought my mom was showing some pride in me, but then I realized maybe she just didn't like me.
Yeah. I've heard that. Yes.
It is one of the most thankless jobs because when there's money on the table, somebody's reaching for it. Mm-hmm. And you're lucky if only one's reaching for it. Mm-hmm. Most likely, there's a couple reaching for it.
And even if they aren't, it's a lot of work.
Yeah.
You're basically taking someone's life and, okay, where were these bank accounts? How much are in them? What kind of paperwork do you need? Wells Fargo? Yeah. Just picking through someone's life, taking care of the things in the house. Yeah, no, that's a tough conversation too, because parents will come in and they'll be like, okay, we're going to just go birth order because, I don't want to piss anybody off. I don't want anybody to feel like we didn't love them. And I was like, guess what? That's not how it goes down. As soon as that kid gets the role of trustee, they're going to think, why did my parents hate me so much?
Yeah.
And parents are shocked by that.
So if I came into you and said, okay, listen, I've got 5 kids, I need to pick a trustee. Obviously, you're not a fan of picking 2 or 3, right? What advice, if you were to advise me, like, hey, consider this when you're picking a trustee, what are some of those things that you would, say? Or does it change? Like once I tell you my story and I tell you about my kids, then you say, okay, well, consider this based on that.
Right.
Consider this.
Yeah, exactly. I need to get the context.
Okay, there's not a set kind of, you don't just pull out the playbook and go, okay, here's the things you should think about.
Well, I mean, there are qualities you want. For sure.
Okay, what are they?
You want someone who's a decision maker, right? You don't want someone who hems and haws or has a hard time like, should we do this? Or one of those people that runs around and asks 4 or 5 different people the same question and gets advice and then is a little, vapor locked about it. So you want a goal-oriented decision maker person. Preferably someone who, there's that dynamic of spouses, someone who will do it on their own. I can't tell you how many men, or I shouldn't say just men, but will get appointed as a trustee from a parent and then the wife starts doing stuff and it pisses off the siblings, right? So you want a dynamic that they're independent, they can do things. Some people shy away because of distance, geographic distance. And I think it is a consideration because that person will have to come to where you live to do things. But in this day and age, there's a lot of things that can be done online. So It wouldn't be a total detractor. Someone who doesn't have their own financial issues, right? Aren't too spendy or sort of responsible themselves with their own money. You'd look at things like owning a house, having a job, supporting a family. You don't want the son who's lived with mom into his 60s and never really, flew the coop, right? those are problems. He may be completely responsible, but those are dynamics that set up with other siblings that are really hard to overcome. And the other siblings are distrustful, generally speaking. Preferably a sibling that's respected, that's a respected person amongst your beneficiary class.
Okay.
Yeah, those are kind of the biggies.
Have you ever had a situation where they come in and they go, none of my kids will execute this right?
Yeah.
There'll be just absolute chaos.
Yep.
We need somebody from outside the beneficiary class.
Yes, all the time.
Okay, all the time.
Well, a lot.
It's more common than...
It's becoming more common because parents are, there's other people like professional fiduciaries, banks that are taking over it, and they're thinking, well, I don't have to put that burden on the kids. That's a conversation that actually I'm having more than I used to.
Wow.
Yeah.
I get that, though.
Yeah.
I really can see.
Like it's worth the extra money. They're a little more expensive, those professional fiduciaries and banks charge a little more to do the work. But it may be worth it if the kids are just kind of like have to make decisions. Okay, come in on this day and this is how we're divvying up stuff. Okay, we're selling the house, just so you know. This is the offer. This is, and they're out to get the best price. They're out to, they know how to do it.
Right.
There's not a lot of drama of like selling mom and dad's family home,
Well, you still could have that even if you have an outside fiduciary handling it, right?
Yeah.
Everybody gets emotional about it.
Right.
Right. This
right.
has been in
and
the
if
house.
one kid wants it, there's third party of like, okay, if you want it, this is what it's worth, and there's not kind of like, well, okay, I'll knock off a couple thou for you because you, and then the other siblings like, wait a minute,
Yeah. That never happens. Jeez. All right. What are some of the common misconceptions about estate planning?
I think the biggest is you could do it yourself, DIY, because there's definitely a lot of marketing out there. LegalZoom, Nolo Press, Susie Orman software, Rocket Lawyer. I don't recommend it. It's one thing to look at a YouTube video to switch out your garage door opener code, and it's another thing to like plan a critical time in your life where there's no going back, right? If you screw it up, that's what you're stuck with.
Yeah.
The other is that once you have it done, you're done. A lot of people put it in their safe deposit box or their file cabinet, and they're like, I've checked that off my list. I'm good. But laws change, life changes, assets change, and we don't know, when it's going to happen. My dad died of a massive stroke. He was still 78, still running, still skiing. Had just 18 months married to his second wife, who was wonderful. They were planning a trip to Ireland. He woke up that morning, had his usual Monday lunch with his, elementary school buddies, went home to take a nap and never really woke up.
Wow.
So we don't know.
Right. You don't know.
Yeah.
You don't know.
Yeah.
All right. Living in Petaluma, how do you manage the work-life balance? I mean,
that's awesome.
Come on, tell us.
It is awesome. I mean, when I was in the DA's office, I was on the road at 7:30, dropping my kid off at daycare. Had to be at court at 8, or at the office at 8. Court at 8:30. Court would go to 5. I had my daycare person calling like, "You need to be here in a half an hour." I mean, it was just stressful. Commute, all of that stuff. I live 2 minutes away from my office. I get in when I. Not when I, want to, because I definitely have a schedule I need to be but it's just so nice to be local, really get to know people. I've lived here this whole time, and it wasn't really until I started this business that I really understood the town and got involved.
Which leads us to, you're on this new project, unrelated. Actually, it kind of ties in with your estate planning.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Like elder care?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. No, it definitely was as a result of my work with Medi-Cal,
Okay, so it's called the Hogeweyk Project. which is in the Netherlands.
Or we could say Dementia Village Project.
For those of us who can't say the word right, I probably got that wrong 4 ways. There's too many syllables.
At some point, Alan will get it right.
Okay, so you and I got connected
Right?
through this.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
I mean, there was something else involved, but it ultimately, this is the item, right? Tell the listeners what this project is. What Dementia Village? We think here in the States, probably, this is just another like assisted living,
Memory care.
Yeah.
Warehouse.
All those warehouse.
And we just
That's
added
a
village
harsh-
to make it sound better.
Yeah, exactly.
It's a problem I have been aware of for some time, and it's heartbreaking. Through Medi-Cal work, I would qualify families to get their loved one, whether it's a spouse or a parent, into care in a skilled nursing facility for the long term and make it affordable. I had a spouse one time paying $150 a month for his wife's care in a skilled nursing facility. And you were a rock star. I mean, I was a rock star. The family was just so grateful. They felt like their loved one was getting the care that they needed. And that was true. And it was affordable. And the spouse who was, facing $14,000 a month bill for care for the wife is now paying $150. But through that, I recognized, and I've been in a lot of skilled nursing facilities. And if you're in a Medi-Cal bed, you're sharing it with at least one other person, maybe 2. You don't really get to pick your roommate. And it's institutional care. It smells like pee. But having said that, incredible, loving staff most of the time, clean, and they are getting the care that they need. But I always gave advice to families like, make sure you visit often. Because I've also had clients who didn't have often visitors, and it's sad.
Yeah.
Their world is a bed, walking a hallway if they're ambulatory, someone helping them on and off the toilet with a tray of food and a TV to look at. And it's heartbreaking. So I saw a video a couple years ago on Instagram, and the caption was, "Everybody in this village has dementia." And it showed these people in a village going to a cafe, a restaurant, a grocery store, a community park, visiting with their family members outside, and there was a fountain, and I thought, what? No way. And I started looking into it. And I thought, wow, that's really cool. And I just kind of sat on it like, that's in the Netherlands. They have a totally different system. It's more socialist. They're going to be able to pull that off. That'll never happen in America. And then I actually started I went on a year-long leadership program started. And they wanted you to have what they call a game in the world. Like, what are you going to do for your community? Tell us. And I thought this was a total long shot. But I want to create a dementia village in my community, preferably Petaluma, as a prototype. And come to find out, the people in that village are actually late stage, severe dementia and dementia with psychosis, which also is severe dementia with psychosis is basically life in a mental institution. Almost worse than a skilled nursing facility, probably, because visitation is very difficult. The only location is in Sacramento. I had a client whose husband was in that situation. And that even motivated me more. And so I got some people together, a few others, and it's very much ground floor. But we have come to find out that village in the Netherlands actually is based on a whole paradigm shift, a disruption of treatment of these people, of people with severe dementia with psychosis. Who knew? And they've consulted with many different communities in other countries, Australia, New Zealand, Canada, Austria, France, and there is actually a location that they consulted with in Indiana. So that's what we're doing. And, hopefully I'm going to visit the village in the Netherlands in July 1. And it's an all-day tour from a founder that educates you in the paradigm they call Be Active. And, you know, we hope to create one here in Petaluma where it totally uplifts people and the families with, you know, loved ones who have severe dementia. That the activity that they have, not being in a bed, being a part of a community, despite their mental challenges, actually gives them a better quality of life and dignity. That's what I'm after.
It looks like it's really through a lot of activity, right? I mean,
Yeah.
that seems to be the common theme
Yeah.
as we get older.
Yeah.
One is isolation,
Yes.
trying to avoid that.
Yes.
Right? The other one is being active.
Yes.
Whatever that means. And I know we've talked about this, like the Blue Zones has the Power 9 wheel. Mm-hmm. And the Power 9 wheel is really is designed to help you prevent or postpone something like dementia. Mm-hmm. But it's an active based, it's it's food based. Mm-hmm. And that's really, it looks like, right, where we're at now that's where we got to get to.
That's where we got to get to. And that's why I love you being on the team, because you're always looking from like bird's eye view. Like there's this stuff, like it all connects at some point, and we haven't, we're making those connections, and we may find something more than the village. We may find just really creating all of those opportunities from middle age to severe dementia in a healthy way.
Right.
Well,
you talked about earlier, like you liked problem solving, and this is really like a puzzle.
Right.
That I think a lot of the pieces are there.
Already there.
It's just that the pieces don't know that the other pieces are there, or we're not aware yet.
Right.
How to put these pieces together.
Like, can we pull it together?
Yeah. And can those other pieces operate under the umbrella of one puzzle?
Right.
Yeah. That's it. So how soon before you build this? Hang on, let me get my watch out. Go ahead.
Well, you were on the Zoom. So from conception to operation, she said, was 3 to 5 years.
Yeah.
Why not?
It's worth
Why
a
not?
shot.
Right?
If you don't try. How's that go? Sean likes to say, as a basketball guy, if you don't take the shot, you'll never make it.
Yeah. Yeah.
There you go.
So we're taking the shot.
Perfect. So if we need people, and we do, when we're looking for people, who would you like to? It doesn't necessarily mean I'm not looking for a name.
Yeah.
Somebody's
Connect me
background.
Yeah. I mean, at this point, just from our Zoom meeting with Jeanette, they had architects, care, like someone involved in the care community. Right. I would love someone who kind of knows more of the RCFEs, which are residential care facilities for the elderly, regulatory navigation, because I think that's kind of a route to help pay for it. Like, I think we can tap into Medi-Cal resources. That would be great. I know enough to be dangerous, but a real expert would be helpful.
Yeah, but you're taking this on, and sometimes you need somebody to take it on. They don't have to know all the answers. They just have to be bold enough to take it on.
Yeah, we're just building a team.
Yeah.
With people who want to contribute and create possibilities for this.
Okay. So let's circle back to estate planning as a closeout.
Okay.
All right. Is there anything that you think should have brought that up, should have mentioned it to somebody out there who doesn't have, do you need a will if you have a trust? Do you need a trust if you have a will?
Yeah. Generally, I can't say what you need until I know what you have. But, get educated. We provide an educational webinar. It's about 90 minutes, and sometimes live seminar at times. We have another one coming up in March here in Petaluma, actually. Through me or someone else that takes you through what you need and why you need it.
Okay.
So I don't think people are motivated to do things until they understand the why. And that's that's what we do. So most people need a trust. If you, just on a general scale, if you own property, you need a trust.
Okay.
Because you want to avoid probate. But again, educating yourself to know what probate is, what can happen if you don't have something, or you just have a will, or you have a poopy trust, you want to know what the consequences are. And that's, I think, the first step in kind of getting that created for you and your family. You may already have a trust and it's old. Get it looked at.
Okay.
Get it looked at.
Poopy trust, is that a legal term? Is that part of the estate planning rules?
Yeah, bare bones is what we call it. But
so if I want to get a hold of you.
Poopy was the word that came to me.
If we want to get a hold of you, how if we want to sit in on one of those webinars.
Yeah.
Or come to the live meeting.
Right.
How do we get a hold of you?
That's funny you say that. We have a phone, 707-769-9975. I am currently, Miranda and I, who was the associate attorney in the office, is now a partner. So we are in the process of rebranding. But our current website is Law Offices of Bridget MacKay. BridgetMacKayLaw.com. BridgetMacKayLaw.com. On that website, you can find out the classes we're having, whether it's a webinar or a live. You can get signed up. You could call the office. We will switch over to MacKayDressler.com. That website is also live. So either of them, if you navigate to it, will have information.
And Dressler, is that Miranda Dressler?
That's Miranda Dressler.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great. Well, anything I didn't ask you that you thought,
why didn't Alan ask me about this?
Yeah.
No, I can't think of anything. I know that the questions were sort of peppered with Medi-Cal benefits planning. That's kind of, from a legal services standpoint, a dying niche of business, because Medi-Cal on January 1 removed the requirement of a maximum assets you could have to apply to Medi-Cal. So you could basically have any assets you have and apply to Medi-Cal. They're really now, the only limit is if you're wanting in-home services, you're limited by your income.
Okay, so let's go over that because that's important.
Yeah.
All right. So before, if you had a spouse who needed
care in a skilled nursing facility,
you basically had to drain all your assets, be broke, and then put them in the warehouse.
Yeah. Essentially, you could have your house and you could have an extra $130,000 roughly. And then over the last few years, they've morphed those regulations and increased the amount you could have until finally January 1, 2024, to just get rid of all those rules. If you're a single person, it was $2,000.
That's it? You could only have $2,000?
Yeah. That changed. When was that? It was July 2022. It went up to $130,000. But still, it's if it's
$7,000
you could have your house
a month, that goes away. You better check out early.
Yeah. So for years that was my niche. Other estate planning attorneys would refer people to me so that I could help them under the regulatory umbrella, spend down the money and qualify for Medi-Cal. I forget the turn of phrase I used.
I got to get my notebook because I wrote that down and thought that was a brilliant lie. That was a lawyer skirting the issue.
Right?
Legally.
Yes.
Perfect.
Regulatorily acceptable.
It was crazy.
Process, whatever. But, people can pretty much apply for Medi-Cal on their own. If they have an income issue, it's a really thin set of circumstances that they would need my help,
Okay.
Like maybe protecting a rental income or a second property that produces income, to sort of keep their income down for in-home services or skilled nursing, because there's always still a share cost for both of those.
Okay. Well, great. Listen, Bridget, thanks for coming on and helping us work through some of this. It's not simple.
No.
I know it's not simple.
No, you need help. You need a guide. You need a coach.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Thank you very much.
Thank you.